Hello folks, my name is Lilia and welcome to Intelligent, a place on the internet where we learn English to transform our life experience. Today we're going to talk about memorizing vocabulary effectively so that we can actually use it. I won't go into a tirade of how frustrating it is to learn vocabulary, to record it into a vocabulary notebook and then never actually get down to actually saying it. I'm a Ukrainian speaker, so I had to go through this phase of bombarding my brain with as much vocabulary as I could. So I think I know my stuff. And I'm going to take you through it based on my experience. And let's hope we can learn a few things. I've also got a 13-year career in teaching English. So I've observed quite a few learners in my offline and online office. So I've just observed how different people learn, and I have noticed that there is a common denominator that we all share. And here it is. If we learn vocabulary on just one level, it very rarely sticks. Notice one thing about vocabulary. Vocabulary is very multidimensional. And here's what I mean by that. Think about a word in your first language. Let's take the word car. When we hear the word car, there are many aspects to that word that single word evokes in our experience. Well, first of all, when we hear the word car, we imagine a car in our mind's eye. Well, first and foremost, we imagine a picture of a word, car, that may just happen in our mind's eye, or we may imagine the object that we represent by the sound car. So that is our sight and our hearing involved, also our imagination. Then we might also have a feeling experience of being in a car, maybe just going on a road trip, sitting in the back seat while our parents are safely driving us in the country. That will be another aspect or dimension to the word car. We might also have a personal interest in cars, and that will have a specific energetic signature to us when we think of a car. We might know the word car in multiple languages, and that will also add an additional dimension to that word, to that very single word. And the most important thing to realise about the word car is that whenever we want to communicate something involving a car in our experience, in our first language or our second language, what happens first is the realisation of an idea that we want to communicate. And here's why that's so crucial. We tend to think that when we have a thought, it comes up in a verbal form. But it doesn't. Just track this in your own experience. Don't take my word for it. Just see what your experience tells you about it. Imagine a situation where you want to communicate to a friend that you went to a bar last night. What comes first? Does it just come up like that? I went to a bar last night. Or does an idea come first? An idea that is more like a little energetic quantum-like cloud crops up in your mind, and then you formulate it, you verbalize it, you put it into words. And after you verbalize that little energetic cloud, you communicate that idea to your friend. Actually, you can put it in numerous ways. You can just embellish it with whatever level of vocabulary you like. But that idea, that energetic signature that it bears is going to be primary, and your words are going to be secondary. So when we're learning vocabulary, we need to recognise that that is something that happens in our experience and use it to bring vocabulary home. The more dimensions we can bring to our learning process when we're dealing with a vocabulary item, the more multifaceted and multidimensional that vocabulary is going to be. On more levels will it stick in our mind. And by doing that, we will increase the possibility that that word will actually come up when the time for it comes. So let's just speak about examples and we'll see on what levels learning can happen. Well, just let's have that word car as we did in our first example. When we're learning the word car, we can learn it on multiple levels. First, we can learn to associate an object that we represent with the word car and that word car. So that when we look at an object, we see a picture in our vocabulary book, or a teacher points to a car and says, "That's a car." We create that visual association. Visual hearing, right? Then when we hear the word car without even looking at an object, we know what that sound represents. So it's fun. And we know that the communication has happened because we know that a car is a car. The next level of association we can go to is the translation. I know that I have ranted a lot about translation in the past, but I do recognise that there is value in translation, and just as one dimension out of many that you can add to your multifaceted understanding of a word, your first language equivalent will do. What else can you do? Think about a feeling, an emotion that a car sparks in you, because that's just another dimension that you can use to your benefit. If you're a technical kind of person, maybe you will imagine a car and you will imagine just a wrench and the inner workings of a car and nuts and bolts. Well, my husband will tell you much more about it than I can. But if you're a more imaginative, let's say you're a kind of a flow-in, very creative and conceptual and abstract thinking kind of person, maybe you have that artistic vibe to yourself. You may imagine a DeLorean from Back to the Future, or you might imagine a retrowave, synthwave car going somewhere, you're driving that car in the center of a beautiful galaxy and there are constellations and stars all around it and some music is playing. Or maybe you can associate the word car with a specific sort of music that you enjoy listening to when you're in a car. Another thing you can do is rely on your personal experience or memory of a car. Maybe when you were a kid, your parents were avid drivers and they would take you all across the countryside and you were sleeping very safely in the back seat, enjoying the subtle noise and the rustle of the car as it went through the countryside, and it was a very safe and comfortable position for you to be in. Another thing that you might create for yourself when it comes to cars is a car in your life. Does a car happen in your life? Does it have personal relevance to you? Do you have a garage where a car is located? Why not create an association between the word car and that very real car that you can observe in your garage? Where did you first hear about that word? Who said it first? We learn vocabulary best by creating a link between this word and the person who said it in our lives first. For instance, recently I heard an expression, analysis paralysis, from one of my favourite YouTube bloggers. I remember the face that he said it with, I remember the context, I remember him. And that allowed me to put that vocabulary item deep into my treasure trove of vocabulary. So I'm very sure that I will remember it better if I can create that link effectively. The reason we're doing all that is in order for ourselves to create that feeling distinction for a word. And just once again, if you look at any word that is present in your first language, you will notice that that word originates as an energetic impulse. It has a specific energetic signature to it that we translate into a verbal form later on. So we've dealt with the car. Let's just talk about something more abstract. Let's have an adjective here. Let's speak about the adjective ephemeral. Ephemeral. One dimension of that word might be the definition of that word. Ephemeral means something that is not tangible, something that we cannot touch with our fingers, something that as if exists in the air. It's suspended, we cannot really put our finger on it. Another aspect of the word ephemeral might be the visualization of that word. What do you picture when you hear the word ephemeral? Personally, I just picture some cloud, as if those smoke grenades that happen And maybe they're also used in photography to create beautiful visual and colourful effects in a photo. That's what I imagine, just a colourful cloud. In my experience, it's pink. I wonder what colour it is in your experience. I might also imagine the spelling of the word ephemeral and write it down into my vocabulary book. After doing that, I will say ephemeral, ephemeral. It's really crucial that I say it in my own voice, not just listen to a professional English speaker say that word, but actually say it with my own speech organs so that I can get used to my pronunciation of it, so that I don't feel like I sound super awkward when the time for that word comes. I also have a similar word in my first language, which is efemirne. Oh, that's so interesting. The words sound almost the same. There is some correlation between efemirne and ephemeral. How amazing is that? That will serve me as an additional chain link that will add to my understanding and memorization of that word. Do I have a personal experience of something being ephemeral? Of course, I'm a psychologist. I work with people who talk about their perceptive reality. And obviously the word ephemeral comes as part of our perception. Of course it does. And how about me first hearing that word? I do remember one of my favourite teachers on YouTube, Rupert Spira, saying that word ephemeral. I do create that association with him, and that's how I learn it. Does the word ephemeral have a location in my space? In my space of awareness, of course. I can picture it, as we said. And I also have an emotional attachment to this word. I remember reading something about a quality of being ephemeral in some fiction book when I was younger. And I remember where I was. I was in my summer house with my grandparents. So it feels very cozy, and I like to reminisce about that experience. To sum up, how to learn vocabulary effectively so that you can use it. Make it multidimensional. The final thing I'm going to say is that it's only you who can learn vocabulary. No one can teach you vocabulary if you're unwilling to put your arse on the line and actually learn it yourself, to put effort into learning it yourself. If you can figure out a way of doing it in a way that is enjoyable and sparks joy in you, good for you. There must be that way. Language is a dimension, is an area of mind where we'd rather participate as sentient creatures. Being able to speak a language opens so many opportunities to us. And being able to use language accurately makes us comprehensible and engaging speakers to listen to and to communicate with. That's going to be it from me. Please click that like button and subscribe to my channel for more stuff like this. My name is Lilia, and if you're interested in one-to-one private lessons with me or private mentoring sessions, please expand the description box down below and write me an email with the title Lessons or Counselling, and I'll be happy to connect with you on that. I'm going to say bye-bye for now, and I'm wishing you the very best of luck in learning your vocabulary effectively. Have fun.